that's funny. Okay, we're on.
Rolling.
We have not done more than one in the last 7 or 8 weeks. We did the one that several people liked a lot. I don't know how many people ever got to watch them. Maybe they've fallen away, but that was okay. Today I wanted to talk only about one thing that would probably lead to many other things, and that is something called the hedonic tone, always associated with every emotion. Now let me explain. Hedonic means body or bodily, okay? It's as simple as that. Now, it's not simply a theory, it's a fact that every time we experience an emotion, it carries a certain type of reaction within the body. And it feels like something, because every emotion is a feeling, essentially. That's where it comes from. Being uncomfortable in the presence of certain people is a feeling, and the language betrays the truth, right? I can give you examples to show you how obvious emotion and hedonic tone are connected. Purple-faced rage. You've heard the expression? Would you say that there's a physical feeling that goes along with that? I mean, that people will do various things. They'll get sick to their stomach, they'll pop a vein, they'll go blind, they'll become irrational, they'll strike out, right? That some people kill themselves. All kinds of reactions, obviously, because the feeling is so awful. It's a feeling that's awful. And then there's another obvious example. The psychologist considers sexual experience to be an emotion. Now, with that determined, would we all agree that having sexual experience is a strong physical experience? Obviously, right? So the problem is that those things are pretty obvious, but when those things take place, people are not generally meditative and learning anything from it. They're just experiencing it. They're swept away in it, in other words. Itself is just what it really is. It's like a little ping pong ball in the middle of a whole swim of ping pong ball. You know what I'm talking about. We don't have to exaggerate ourselves in this. I mean, the best we can do is make choices about the conditions that surround us. And we're not even sure where those decision choices come from. But anyway, so here's the point of what I'm talking about. I'm shilling for meditation. Basically, what I'm always talking about, which is self-awareness. Why? Because if you're self-aware, then you can maybe establish the what they call the silent witness, the eternal witness. You can establish the fair witness. They call it the fair witness. And you can be objective as possible, and you can withhold from sometimes very abrupt and volatile physical movements. In other words, you have more control over yourself, quite simply, and that's always a better idea. Now, some people hate this idea because they think that meditation is just a continuation of the negative self-consciousness that they have of themselves.
That's what I was going to ask, the difference between self-awareness and self-consciousness.
Self-awareness is just being light as a feather. It doesn't require you to become another person. It just requires that you tune into it, because that's who you basically are, meaning you are, no matter what experience you ever have, no matter how many emotions you go through, you are that one that experiences them. So you become the I am, as the old Nisargadatta Maharaj would say. You basically, right now the I am is ego, which is a bunch of memories. Ego is just memories.
Go into the I am.
The I am for the Nisargadatta. Well, he discovered that he is the eternal. That he is, I don't need to use words to describe that which is beyond words. It's obviously beyond words. But he said, I am totally convinced of what I am. He says, I am not a who. You are not a person, he said to people. I'm really ranging far and wide with this, John. But Nisargadatta was talking about that everybody is essentially God consciousness, only we don't know it. And he says, all the torture in the world could not change my mind about this. It's just a fact. He realized himself. Most of us don't. One of the reasons we don't realize ourselves is because we have a mind-body dualism. And what I'm pointing at today is to somehow, hey, let's throw a little hook out there and hook up the mind and the body. Let's see if we can make them so connected that we realize that you are not a mind and a body, that you are a mind body, okay? You are a physicality that is so much more than just a lump of dead matter. You are creating consciousness out of yourself.
And I think a lot of people go into that idea of mind-body dualism because they're trying to grasp an understanding of reality in its entirety by breaking it up into pieces.
Yeah, that's probably correct. It's Cartesian. Mm-hmm. And the Cartesian foundation of it has been criticized beyond description, as it should be. He believed that the mind and the body were actually separate entities and that you are this soul, this bodily soul, but he's still never really transcended ego in all of that. And it's not true. I mean, the mind and the body... See, what he's done is to relegate body to this dead lump, okay? He said without this kind of consciousness, there is no consciousness, which is what? He said, well, having clear and distinct ideas. So if, in other words, you're a nice, clear thinker, you're really alive. You're not, then you're not even conscious. He was totally wrong. He said if a dog is being crushed under the wheels of a wagon, the screams you hear are just broken machinery. Oh, no sentience. Now, a lot of people who would hear this would be outraged at him for saying that. And they'd be correct, because he had his head in a dark place where the sun didn't shine. He wrote this in Sweden, by the way. So, in the winter. So, okay, you understand. So, what I'm pointing at is the fact that, I mean, I'm implying it, if somebody wants to take it and run with it, that the body is a lot more than that dead lump. The body is like a spiritual thing. It's not a thing, actually. It's a process. It's always in change. Correct? I mean, the body is a process along with everything else around it. Everything is in process. Everything is constantly moving in flux.
Like the way that I moved this camera.
Wow, look at what you just did. All right. And you still got me?
I do. I'm still rolling. Sorry, viewers.
Well,
we're getting some light.
Blame it on John. I can't think of anything else to say.
It's all my fault.
Yeah. So you see, I'm just basically trying to promote the idea of self-awareness. Pay attention to your feelings, and you will be seeing stuff about yourself. Now, some people say, yeah, so what? And they'd be right for themselves, because they're not going to do anything with it. It's not going to, it's a seed that's going to fall on barren ground. But some people hear it, and they realize that meditation is not something that you do only when you're sitting cross-legged in the ashram. Meditation is always now, because you are always now. And that's all you're trying to establish, the fair witness in the now, being here now. I mean, it's really old stuff from the 60s. So
meditation is not the self-idealized, well, the idealized self sitting in a perfect position, right, breathing perfectly, observing oneself perfectly as a completely still being.
Yeah. Yeah, what I think a lot of people really do not like is that when they do meditation, they find a lot of their own crap. Mm. Are you still fiddling around? You're gonna get a bunch of people coming after you with
they're gonna hate me.
With pitchforks and scythes and torches.
Yep.
You know what they say.
Oh, my God.
If it ain't broke,
If only the people
Don't
could see
fix
what
it.
you're doing. If only they could see
they only
what
see
you're
the
doing.
effect of what I'm doing.
It's amazing. He's balancing a tripod on a thin wire. And he's doing it. I don't know how you're doing that. Okay.
There we are.
All right, enough of the entertainment. Did you want to discuss anything else? I mean, is this
Well,
good enough?
maybe go into the idealized self.
Oh,
How, I mean,
oh, yeah.
I think
Okay.
the much of the divide out of the moment, like really getting out of the moment, and I suppose into the depths of one's own hell, starts with the idealization of oneself and of that moment.
Where does the idealization start?
Mm.
Let's do that.
I mean,
We've discussed it in the past, I think. Doesn't it just come from defending yourself when you're a little kid? You don't want to be blamed for something? You don't want to get punished for something?
yeah,
You start hiding.
yeah,
My brother made me do it.
shame.
Yeah, shame becomes, well, that's right, that's a good point. Because toxic shame is one of the worst things that the psychologists talk about.
Go into that.
Well, there's punishment, and then there's punishment with shame, and once the punishment and the shame become wedded in the child, anything that serves as an inroad on the child's sense of vulnerability is going to be not only painful, but it's going to be shameful. And shame is considered a master emotion, by the way, by psychologists. It'll create more behaviors than any other one, even love. Isn't that
So-
interesting?
I mean,
mean,
it
people
would seem
ki-
to be the opposite of love, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Toxic shame, when parents hurt their kids and they give them shame that lasts them a lifetime.
You're
I'm
suggesting that parents could potentially cause a consequence for a poor decision that a child makes without shaming them.
I think that anything we do can lead to a bad result.
Of course.
Anything that we do can lead to good results
Right.
too. The dialectic is here in the midst of what I call the Tao, the whole thing. If parents shame their kids, they're just guaranteeing a difficult lifetime. If parents treat their kids with love and respect, they have a better chance of producing an easier lifetime. Nothing guarantees that the person comes to a realization of meditation. Many people hear it, many are called, few are chosen. Most people do not really meditate. They get lost in their belief systems, they get lost in their immediacy. They're so identified out here that the automatic responses that have been built into them will simply arise, and they don't control them and they don't pay attention to them, but they'll hide themselves back saying that somehow they're always in the right. And what, unfortunately, when they are shamed, when there's toxic, poisoned shame still at work in them, they're going to be invitations for the kind of events and the kind of people who will produce a reproduction of that shame. It becomes, you've heard me say it, early conditioning becomes destiny. You get this plastic wax, not plastic, this waxen figure that looks like a baby, and you start sticking your conditioning fingers into it. I mean, like some of these monsters that hurt babies.
To mold it.
Yeah, that they're gonna
Mold.
teach
Mold.
it, they think that hurting children, like beating children, is a way to teach them the correct way. I mean,
And you're saying that forms their destiny, both
It-
on their end in the way that they interact with the world and on the end of how people interact with them.
absolutely.
Cause and effect from both ends.
Yeah, because your personality, we have many personalities. We're like the ballroom chandelier with all the facets, and every time it turns to a new set of conditions, we respond to it. but there are central aspects of the personality, and it's driven by the emotion that stands behind it, the bodily emotion which is inbred. And you want to find out what you're really made of? Pay attention to your emotions. I mean, that's basically all I'm saying today. We
And
call
it's
it.
rooted in body consciousness. The emotion is rooted in body consciousness?
I would think that people who are interested in body consciousness recognize this as a de facto. Oh yeah, you're not saying anything I don't know. That's true. Do it. Are you doing? Who cares? I don't care. I'm not leading the band. I'm just here banging on this. This is my music. I've got this tin can and I'm banging on it. Because I see this, the world as it is. I see this amazing, horrible world where there are so many nice, good people in the world, but there's so much selfishness and so much narcissism, so much vampirism, so much usage, so many murders. People have no care that they're killing other people by the dozens. I have known at least one psychopath who was a murderer, a former student from the high school. I never taught him. Came back, told me he had committed 3 murders in another country, and he really liked it. Yeah. I also had a friend I grew up with on and off, that I worked out with at the Y. Came back from, after years I had not seen him, and he had been a merchant marine, and he told me that he made 8 trips to Vietnam bringing stuff. And he said during the time he was out there, he killed 3 people. And I know these people to be, they're what you call psychopaths. These people are psychopaths. I think the latter was probably a sociopath, where the first one I mentioned was an actual psychopath. He will plan and manipulate to do it. The other one will do it if it arises, if it's an opportunity. Because I know that the guy, this merchant marine, didn't go out to kill anybody. I know he used to fight like tough guy, very tough guy. And he used to get into fights all the time. He just had that. He drew it. And he loved it. And he won. Tough guy.
He's constantly living in conflict with the world.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be careful with him. He would just explode and attack you physically, ready to just attack. But he was a sociopath, in my opinion. The other guy was a psychopath. He actually just went looking to do it.
Right.
You see? And now I understand he's still doing, he's been doing it all these years, and that's 50 years.
So, are we exploring the idea of that the condition that those people experience is a changeable condition? Or
That's a good question.
I would suppose that it would be a miraculous change.
Yeah, that's, okay, good. I'm glad you said that. Because I'm not claiming anything, I'm still
Right.
a crazy person.
You know,
I mean, I sense it, I know what's going on all these years. And, I mean, I can say that I paid attention.
Mm.
But no, if you think that you're gonna become something that floats off the ground, give it up. No, what you're gonna do is get to a place, this is me talking, here's what I say. Get to a place where you can be authentic, where you can stop bullshitting yourself in any way. We're all flawed. I mean, what are we? We're tiny, tiny submolecules in an ocean, a cloud that goes beyond all measurement
Right.
of molecules. I am so, I mean, this horse shit, this human condition, I'll tell you, this is a species that has me very worried. I think we could really dissolve ourselves because we have no real control.
Well, with the rise of robots, it would probably happen.
Maybe the robots will
Become
say,
the next thing to inherit the earth.
yeah, you know what they're gonna call themselves? They're gonna call themselves workers for Gaia. She's gonna say, okay, you wanna screw around with technology? You think you're gonna like do anything you want with technology? Let me show you what your technology is gonna do. And in the technology, we produce something that will supplant us. That would be funny. But I think, from a different point of view, maybe I'm too much like that crazy guy what is it, Morty and
Oh, Rick and Morty?
Rick and Morty?
Yeah,
Rick
Rick
is the bad
Sanchez.
guy, right?
Rick's, he's not a bad guy.
No, he's crazy
He's just
person.
him. He's just Rick.
Right, it's just Rick, yeah, he's that. Yeah. Well,
He's like an anti-hero.
yeah, you're right, well, it started a long time ago with Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
And now you've got guys like Rick
Yeah.
who are acceptable.
Yeah.
And Ray Donovan is acceptable. You root for him. I can't count the people he's killed on that program.
Yeah.
Because he's suffering. You can see he suffers like everybody else. And we basically are that. We're just these suffering beings. And people want to say, oh no, I'm not suffering. I'm Tom Brady. Your wife still yells at you for not taking out the garbage, Tom. It doesn't matter. You're still looking for the next fulfillment.
Right.
And he's got all these rings. Great quarterback. Am I right? I'm not a fan of any football anymore. I don't care about it. I know they're great athletes and they kill each other.
Mm-hmm.
They're
It's
like
definitely respectable what they do.
yeah.
The degree to which they do it.
Unfortunately, it's a continuation of you can call it an avatar of violence that people always love.
Right.
The Colosseum and all
The
the
incredible projection of internal conflict that people look to like solve that problem by being entertained.
Right. If people can somehow sublimate it through just witnessing it, it helps. It reminds me of something I read years ago when I was teaching psych. I remember bringing up the Yanomamo was doing violence. The Yanomamo tribe down in South America, extremely violent, ugly people. Ugly in the sense of their behaviors. They fight with each other. The women are beaten. Everybody cheats. They steal from each other. They kill whenever they can. And when it's a big tribe, and there are whole bunches of communities of them. It's all the same people. And sometimes they get together for festivals, so that they don't go to war.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And how do they keep from going to war? They openly say the Shagnon, I guess you say his name, Shagnon, he lived among them and he learned. First thing they did was stole everything from him they could. He saw them doing all kinds of things, but here's what they used to do as a ritual to avoid going to war. During their festivals, after they would eat, they'd have these contests where, from different tribes, they take turns punching each other in the kidneys as hard as possible. And the one who's still standing is the winner. That's the first one. There's another one that I remember.
We are a doomed species.
People say, oh no, we're not like them. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, right.
Wait a minute.
We still watch silly shit.
The stuff that Hollywood puts out, the violence, I can't believe it. Anyway, look, here's another one. You want to hear another one? The Yanomamo. They get these long, thick poles, hard wood, correct? Long, I don't know, 8, 10 feet long. And they take turns, smashing each other over the top of the head. Whoever's standing is the winner. When Shagnon first, I remember a few things. It's so much fun. When Shagnon first went up the river to be the first white man to meet them, there were a bunch of them standing and sitting up on like a knoll just above the river, okay? And they're all dripping green mucus out of their noses in great abundance. They had just taken some kind of tropic psychedelic. They were just snorting it, and they were totally stoned on it. This is his first introduction to the Yanomamo.
It's really no different than what we do here.
It's
in the
like
States.
Los Angeles.
Yeah.
It's like
Just go to an MMA fight.
Yeah, right.
Drink a bunch of booze.
Yeah.
Mind-altering substance.
Yeah.
Watch some violence. It's no different. Yeah. There's really no separation.
You're a little out of place with a lot of, you hang out with these people, but you're a little out of place, huh?
Yeah, always. Sure, my
Be
friend will
careful.
love this one.
Well, anyway, we were going to talk about bullying, but I don't know if you want to go into that now. I would just say one thing about bullies. I'll go back to Plato to find this, but if you have any common sense, you know. and it has strong effect knowing about it. And that is, every bully is essentially a coward. Picks only on the ones that he is certain he can dominate and beat.
I've witnessed this.
You've seen this, right? So have I. And in the right circumstances, a little girl can turn a bully into a big collapsed balloon.
Absolutely. Shame becomes a weapon.
There you go. It's the shame that drives the person.
Yeah.
I think you're probably right. I mean, anybody else who has a point of view on this, I would love to hear some people talk about this.
I suppose the only thing that I would add to this, and this is some of the concepts that we learn in self-defense, is the best resolution to the circumstance is not necessarily destroying that person completely. And
Almost
it comes
never.
with a responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, if it gets to that point where one has to defend themselves and go all the way to absolute destruction, I suppose, then that's what has to happen to preserve oneself. But there are several other ways of dealing with conflict. So you have an aspect of escaping, an aspect of controlling, an aspect of destroying. The last one would be destroying by using shame against them. But referring to the Gnostic Gospels and the things that they would preach, the best resolution is the miraculous, the one where they resolve conflict.
The way they would suggest it, I would think, at least some of them, if they're really astute, they would suggest it as doing it within the framework of great effort, great discipline.
Yeah.
They used to, I don't want to say ridicule, but when some of the martyrs allowed themselves to be tortured and torn to pieces for months by the Romans, who were crucifying and they would crucify the Christians, the early Christians, and they would allow themselves to undergo all this terrible stuff. The Gnostic would say that's not necessary. But everybody has his or her own path. And I remember reading about one woman whose name I can't remember, but they just mauled her for months, and then they burned her alive or something. Some nice things, you know. And she wouldn't give up her Christianity. Now you could say, well, you look into her own dynamics, her relationship to her father, her need for the God, the love of the great God. She could withstand that. Courageous, obviously. Where did I read it? Oh, I've read some books on Gnosticism. Probably Elaine Pagels. Elaine Pagels, the great scholar. John Davidson, also the great scholar. Their stuff on Gnosticism is an education. They'll teach you a great deal. You don't have to read everybody. But the Gnostics were manifold. There were many, many of them, and they all had different things to throw into the pie, so to speak. Anyway, are we done? Have we finished torturing these people?
I suppose that's a decent amount for today.
Yeah, I hope somebody watches. I'd really like to get dialogue, because some of the people who are my subscribers, my old friends, my students, they're smart, they have depth, and I'd love to hear their minds, because what I keep finding is when I meet them after all these years, 48 years, 50 years, I meet them and I am impressed. You see that they used to be 18 when I knew them. Now they're in their 60s and late 60s, and they're smart. Oh, what was that, Lucy? Oh, take it easy, baby.
Well, here's the invitation. Anybody that would like to join us in these conversations, please come and join us here.
Talk to us about feelings and bullying.